Hi everyone, my name is Natasha Westover and welcome to Accounted International. Today, as always, I'm joined by AK and we're talking about triggers for anxiety. So Andrew and I are finance and business professionals and specialists. We are not healthcare experts. We're certainly not doctors, but we have seen mental health issues in our own lives, families, at work, in our teams, in organizations. And by and large, people are talking about it way more today than they did 20 or so years ago when we started in our careers. So we thought it would be valuable to talk about some of the triggers for anxiety today, real sort of practical examples of how it looks, so that maybe you guys can have a think about, do you feel anxious? What triggered it for you? It certainly helped that a colleague of mine did exactly this with me, told me her anxiety triggers, and I was able to sort of mirror some of them to my life. And I hadn't thought that what was going on in my life, I know I was struggling a bit, but I didn't put it down to anxiety. So she really helped sort of clarify that for me. So to kick us off, we're going to start with AK, as always. Take it away.
Thanks, Natasha. Yeah, I mean, as you say, excuse me, as you say, we both experienced anxiety ourselves and in friends and family and colleagues. And I think one of the most important things, if anxiety does come into your life, is being able to recognize your own sort of personal triggers. I think for me, one of the biggest issues is when you have multiple deadlines at work, or you have conflicting deadlines between work and home, and it's these things tend to sort of build up, and they tend to feed off of each other, and you sort of start spiraling. Things are spinning around in your heads, and it tends to make make focus very difficult. So I think having multiple deadlines or deadlines that are concurrent, that can be a real challenge, and working out how to deal with that is a priority in ensuring that you don't have any major anxiety issues. Another thing is when you are placed completely outside of your comfort zone. I think being given a left field project that you've never been involved in, it might be that you're not a tax specialist, but you're given tax work to do. It might be that you've got you're being asked to get involved in sales and marketing activity that you've never done before. It is very much a case of trying to deal with deal with the discomfort of being put in that position. And I think the anxiety comes from the unknown, the fact that you've not done it before, and I think we'll cover in a separate presentation how being outside of your comfort zone can be a benefit as well as a lead to anxiety. But then I guess so being outside your comfort zone, multiple deadlines and volume of work, I think are primary causes of anxiety for me in the workplace. What about yourself, Natasha?
Yeah, and just as you sort of summed it up at the end there, let me say that again. Just as you summed it up at the end there, all of those things can be creepers. They're not like one massive thing that's come in and just like, oh, I feel anxious. They kind of like edge forward. And so for me, that's certainly why at times I haven't recognized I'm starting to feel a bit anxious about stuff, because my volume of work has just kind of crept up quite slowly over time, and now it's massive. So yeah, very, very similar to you. I've experienced all of that. I've also seen things outside of work affect my productivity at work or my performance in some way. And I thought I was doing a great job at sort of separating the two. Like, oh, there's loads of crap going on outside of work, but I go to work in 9 to 5. You know, I'm doing okay, and actually I'm not, and the anxiety is slowly setting in, and what's going wrong outside of work is slowly creeping into my everyday life. That's certainly been a trigger for me, and one that I'm trying to get better at staying aware that it's happening. I'm starting to sort of recognize it a bit more. You mentioned about multiple deadlines. Definitely, as finance people, we get that all the time. Mine are consistent deadlines, and you know, deadlines can sometimes get shorter and shorter and shorter, especially if you're doing something quite special at work, like you're selling a business or something like that. All of a sudden, everything's really, really urgent, and so you have consistent short-term deadlines, and that can put a lot of pressure on me, and that's definitely been a trigger for me. And one of the things, I know we've talked about this in many videos, is about, you know, having the confidence to say no. And certainly before, when I was new in my career, I got anxious about having to say no. So it's not only the fact that things are built up so much that I have to say no to someone. I have to say it's going to be difficult for me to do that piece of work. I've got all these other things going on, but I was getting anxious about having those meetings where I had to say no. And that comes with practice, and you know, there's all sorts of things that tools that I now have in place which help me do that. But it's definitely been a trigger of actually saying no to someone causing anxiety as well. Do you have any more thoughts, Andrew?
No, like I say, I think the dread of you know, sort of admitting that you've got a problem actually causes part of the problem. Is you know, that's yeah. Whilst it's a lot more common in the workplace, I think that sort of there's still a certain element of stigma and a perception of weakness if you admit to not being able to cope. But I think, you know, it is, you know, awareness is increasing, and I think people are learning. You know, employers and you know, individuals are learning that you know, anxiety and stress is something that can be managed, and you know, it's a collaborative process. So no, I think yeah, I mean, once you understand what your personal triggers are, and you can take visibility of them, then you know, you know, you then have a number of decisions to make in how you manage that.
Yeah, certainly. And I think we've spoken before about it's excuse me, it's very easy to say, go and tell your manager you've got anxiety. It's hard to do that, and also it doesn't have to be like that. It's if you think about what we've identified as some of our triggers, you don't have to say, I have anxiety over the volume of work I have. It's like, okay, I have this emotion, but what are the facts? The facts are, when I started, I was doing this. Now I'm doing this. Can we have a conversation about how my workload has grown? Can we have a conversation about, you know, how we can divide up the work? Can you help me fit this amount of work into a working month? There are so many things you can say without saying I have anxiety if you don't want to, but it's still worth, you know, Andrew and I always talk about encouraging our teams to talk to us about any issues we have, and we've grown in confidence about talking to our superiors about issues that we have. And it's not always about using words like I'm stressed or I'm anxious. It's about, if you feel uncomfortable, bringing it back to the facts and saying this has changed. I will need support with this, and I'd love your advice. I'd love your input. It's things like that, isn't it, AK?
Absolutely. I mean, it's things like, if you're outside your comfort zone, saying, look, this really isn't my forte. It's something that I've not done for a long time. It's something that needs a bit of time to research. You can it's just explaining, why you might be having those anxiety feelings. And, yeah, absolutely. It's dealing with the facts and trying to suppress the emotion.
Absolutely. Really well put. Okay, thanks for your time, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.